And I'm Heather Branch here asking Abe for his ideas on the things that you can be working on to better prepare for your financial future. TheRetirementKey.com is where you can start the conversation with Abe and his entire team at Abish Financial Services. We also have links posted in the show notes. Or again, if you have questions about your retirement savings plan, you can find us at TheRetirementKey.com. If you can't find us there, you might be looking for Abe. I don't know if he'll be running on the road or lying down. If it were me in your shoes, I'd be lying down, taking a nap on there. Have we talked about this yet? The fact that for your 45th birthday, you've decided to gift yourself a 45-mile run, which is a
That's
very
right.
bizarre thing to give oneself.
Just a
Abe.
little challenge, I love challenges. And
Just a little challenge.
Yeah, there'll be a reward after we finish.
Okay.
Nice steak dinner
Right.
with drinks and everything. But
Yes.
but yeah, just decided, hey, just huge challenge for turning 45 in late May, and decided to run 45 miles that day. Just got
I
the whole
respect
challenge bug and everything, and this whole endurance thing. So
I
we'll see how it
respect
goes. We're training for it, and
I
I've
don't
got some help.
understand it.
Yeah, it's 45. Yeah, someone asked, one of my biker friends was like, are you biking that or running
Nope.
that? And
Running.
Because he's like, because I know how long biking 45 miles, takes. No, running 45 miles.
That's
So
what we were talking about. You were thinking it's going to take you about 8 hours, 8 or 9
to 9
hours?
hours, something like that. Yeah.
More power to you. I want to stay updated on this, how we progress, because you've been training for months already.
Yes.
The run happens at the end of May. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. We shall see how the man survives 45 miles.
And conquer.
Okay. Speaking of surviving and conquering, what many might seem as less of a daunting task, 45-mile run or planning for 40 years of retirement. I guess it depends on who you're talking to, on what I'm more intimidated by the 45-mile run, if I'm being totally honest. Thinking about what we need to do to prepare for our retirement years. We all hear the stories. How much do you need? It started at about $1 million back in the 90s, right? You'd hear you need $1 million to retire. And then the latest average number that's come out from Schwab is $1.8 million.
Yeah.
So when we have talked about this before on the past, you always bring up, listen, it's different for everybody. We got to do the math on your circumstance and situation. However, the motleyfool.com did a survey where they're asking people, how much do they think you're going to need for retirement? Remember the survey number? And the common response with the motleyfool.com was, I need $1.8 million.
Yeah.
So the question I want to talk to you about is the people that you talk to every day in the office, who are they or are they not affected by these stories we hear, the headlines that we hear, and do they think the wrong things about what they need to actually retire and to retire well?
Yeah, I think when they hear these stories on our radio show, they tend to get an idea of what they have saved, maybe stacked up against what other people have saved. And we see a lot of $1 million to $3 million, $1 million to $5 million, sometimes less than $1 million, sometimes 5 to 10 or more. But when someone has 5, 10, 15, 20 million or more, it is much more rare. It's much more rare. What is much more normal is between $1 million and maybe 5 million in this area. And so, however, with that said, you could have less than $1 million saved and still be able to retire with dignity and confidence. It definitely does depend. It all comes down to how much other income do you have coming in from other sources, right? Well, what if you have a $150,000 pension per year and your expenses are only $50K? You could essentially have zero saved in the stock market or invested and be okay, probably, right?
Okay.
So it all depends on where the other income streams are coming in from, how much you're spending. And so sometimes we will see people that have saved less than $1 million. And I'll say to those people, see, you don't need $5 million saved to keep up with the lifestyle that you guys want to live in retirement, right? Because you spend $4,000 a month and your Social Security checks cover your expenses, right?
Sure.
So it's all relative and different. But yeah, for the most part, typically, if you have a few $1 million saved or more, you're probably going to be in a pretty comfortable position to retire with dignity and confidence, to create the income you need, to have that money last you into your 80s and 90s, to hedge against inflation and be there during markets ups and downs, to be there for healthcare and all these things. Speaking of running, We just had a gentleman come in to the office, and he lives in Alexandria, Virginia, and he's got
Nice.
$2.3 million saved. And this
Nice.
guy, yeah, he's a runner. He's single and he's a
Okay.
runner. He's in his early 60s. And Heather, you're talking about 45 miles and how that's a big deal. This guy, 63 years old, has run 100 miles at the same time, 100 miles, and
What?
is considering running a 250-mile race. This is called, I believe it's called Cocodona, and it's a
Why?
250-mile race in Arizona,
Dear
I think.
sir, why would you want to do this to yourself? You have
And
$2 million. You're
I
good.
mean, and you know what? It's what drives you and motivates you in life that
Yeah.
you're gonna go after. And so obviously that inspires him and it drives him and it piques his curiosity enough to get out there and run for
Okay.
probably 2 to 3 days. And what do they say? YOLO, right? You only have one life. And I know that can, there's pros and cons of running
Yeah.
250 miles, but man, I just thought that was a cool story to hear from him, and so much so
Yeah.
that I wanted to share it on the air here.
Did you guys
And
bond over the running, the long
we
distance
definitely
running?
did. We definitely
Nice.
did. And he even
Nice.
volunteered to help me run my race.
That's
So
nice. I
yeah.
love that.
So, I would just encourage anyone listening to pursue your dreams, pursue your interests,
Yeah.
pursue your hobbies. You're not too old. Here's a gentleman that's 63, obviously in great shape, but considering running 250 miles is just absolutely
You would be hard
incredible.
pressed to find an 18-year-old that wants to do that. So kudos
Oh,
to you, sir. Yep.
absolutely incredible. So he came in because he's got $2.3 million saved, and he's
Yep.
single. He's going to be more than fine. Because he's got a big pension, former government employee, Social Security, and I'm like, you know what? All your income's taken care of through your pension and Social Security. Here you are with $2.3 million on top of it. Like, why are you here? Why'd you pick
Yeah.
up the phone? Why'd you come into our office? What's causing any pain? What's causing concern for you?
Mm-hmm.
And for him, it was that, well, I knew how to save it, and I knew how to get here, and I knew how to accumulate a few $1 million, but now I'm concerned with all the risks that can mess up $2.3 million.
Sure.
And so, being single, having his pension covering all of his income, he's an 8 on our risk scale. Just a little bit
Okay.
of context there. On
Yeah.
a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being all stock and 1 being all cash, he's an 8. He's comfortable being an 8, which is that typical 80-20 portfolio. He's
So he's got
comfortable having.
80% of his
Mhm.
$3 million in the market.
And actually more than that now, but he's comfortable having 80% in the stock market long
Okay.
term and
Okay.
20% that would have a much more conservative stance.
Got it.
And it makes sense, right? If all your
Yeah.
bills are paid by guaranteed income coming from the federal government, and then you have a few $1 million on top of it, well, he's thinking, well, if I live into my 90s, I want to make sure this money's there, that it keeps
Sure.
up with inflation, and I want to grow it. I want to grow it. And so he came in because although he's done a fantastic job of growing it,
Mm-hmm.
all of his eggs are in the stock basket. There was
Mm.
no plan to reduce risk, even any bit at all. No plan to create income from the portfolio. And I'm sitting here saying, you're in a fantastic position, but don't wait until you're 85 to enjoy this thing. You need permission to spend.
Okay.
You need permission to know that you're in a fantastic spot and you can turn this life savings, this fantastic accumulation bucket of money,
Mm-hmm.
into an income generating machine, right? That he can enjoy, that it can create a surplus of income for him to go
Right.
about and do whatever he wants to do in retirement. And so there was no plan for phase 2. There was no plan to turn this 2.3 million into income. No plan to handle taxes, RMDs, everything included in phase 2. That's not really discussed or planned for in phase 1. And so the solution for him, as with so many other people, was a stress test of everything he has, a plan to reduce risk, put together that plan, consolidate all of his accounts, and he needed that permission to spend, that permission to turn his life savings into an income generating machine. So if you sound like this gentleman from Alexandria, Virginia, and you say, you know what, Abe, that's me too. I have a few $1 million saved. All my income is covered or largely covered by my pensions and Social Security. But I do want to know how I can protect my life savings from all the risks that can mess it up. I want it to last me the next 30 to 40 years. I want to be protected from all these things that can mess it up. Go to the retirementkey.com. Click on the Contact Us tab at the top of that page, and we can begin to have these same conversations about your retirement as well.
We also have links posted in the show notes. If it's more convenient, you can just click there or, again, find us anytime at theretirementkey.com. I don't know how much you're into stand-up comedy. Do you follow any
Shelly and I
comedians?
love it, actually.
Yeah.
We love it. Yeah. That's one of the
Who's your
first things
favorite?
we go to on a Friday night is, hey, let's find a great comedian on
Yeah.
Netflix.
Yes.
The Italian guy, his name's slipping my mind right now. He's
Sebastian
Sebastian
Maniscalco.
Maniscalco. Oh my gosh.
He's
We find him
hilarious.
absolutely
So good.
hilarious. He
Uh-huh.
is freaking hilarious. And we love him. We love
Yeah.
him. And there's a handful of others.
Nate Bargatze is a good one.
Yeah.
Brian Regan. My husband loves Bill Burr. And so there's this whole group of Southern comedians that kind of run around together. Ron
Yeah.
White is just the ultimate. This guy, if you're a fan of Ron White, I mean, he's
He's
just a character.
doesn't he have like a bourbon with him at all time and like a cigar or something?
Cigar,
Yeah.
bourbon at all times.
Yeah.
But here's the thing about him, though, is that he said he was hanging it up a couple years ago.
Okay.
He's like, I'm retiring. I've had enough. And it didn't take him that long to be back out on the road. I think when you have something like when you're a comedian, you can't stay away from the stage and the audience
Right.
too long. So he's back out on the road 2 years after saying that he was done. And Ron White himself is complaining about something that we all gripe about and know too well. Of course, I'm talking about taxes.
I owe the IRS a bunch of money because I don't understand how that works. It's confusing. When I started doing stand-up, they said that made me an independent contractor, and they said I needed to start filing my taxes quarterly, which I thought meant every 25 years. My brain won't wrap itself around that complicated, man. I have attention deficit disorder. I have learning disabilities. I don't have a high school diploma. I'm smart, but you can't prove it on paper.
Fortunately for Ron, he's been successful enough at this point. I'm sure he's got people there to help him. But taxes, of course, are something that none of us can take lightly. We all have to be responsible enough when it comes to them. How many clients of yours do you feel are unaware of tax consequences in their retirement savings?
Well, I think more people are aware now than they ever have before. However,
Sure.
I think a lot of people have a huge aha moment as they sit across from myself and our advisory team at the conference room table, realizing that, okay, Abe and the team, I do have a few $1,000,000 here saved, but I wish I would have been told this 30 to 40 years ago when I started saving, because I'm saving. They bought into this myth that they'll be in a lower tax bracket when they retire.
Yeah.
And a lot of people won't in the DC metro area throw a few $1,000,000 on top of that. And they're like, I wish I had more money in tax-free accounts like a Roth IRA. I wish I would have started planning for this earlier because I like the amount of money that I have saved, but man, they're sitting on a potential ticking tax time bomb, right?
Yeah.
Accounts, several $1,000,000 that have not been taxed. So we just had a lady call into the show and come into the office. She's in her early 60s. Retiring in 2 to 3 years, divorced, lives in Vienna, Virginia, $2.5 million saved, just a middle of the road investor.
Yeah.
And she came in because her stuff's everywhere. She is with a big box firm. She's been with a big box firm for 20 to 30 years. It's a bank big box firm. Stuff is everywhere, 6 to 7 different accounts, no planning outside of the investments. And she just had her advisor retire and kind of got dumped off on a young person in their very early 20s. There's no relationship there. So she heard us and she's like, you know what? Not only do I need to consider switching firms here, but I also need a phase 2 plan. Because here she is with $2.5 million saved. It's more than she needs to retire successfully. And also realizing she needs a different plan, right, for this phase of her life. So those were all of her problems. And the solution was a comprehensive retirement plan, a comprehensive plan that would put all this together. We started with a roadmap. We started with income strategy. First off, does your income in retirement exceed your expenses? Can you actually pull the trigger and retire just in 2 to 3 years? And that's one of the first things she wanted to know, and she can. And then from there, what's the right allocation, right? You've gotten a $2.5 million saved because you've taken on a lot of risk. Do you need to continue taking on this much risk? What is the right amount of risk to take on for this next season of your life? And naturally, for a lot of people, it's a reduction of risk to some extent. Further, taxes. We just talked about taxes. One of her biggest concerns, as with so many clients that have saved a good amount of money, is what does taxes look like? How are taxes going to eat into my nest egg? How bad is this tax impact going to be? One of her biggest concerns was putting together a tax plan to lower and mitigate taxes on her life savings as much as possible. So the solution for her was a tax mapping report and analysis to show her exactly where she is in her current tax bracket and also what she should consider converting and moving to the tax-free buckets like a Roth IRA. So if you sound like this lady from Vienna, Virginia that we just met with, and you say, Abe, you know what, I'm concerned with taxes as well. Matter of fact, that's my biggest concern, Abe. I have no tax plan. I've saved a few $1,000,000 and I want to know how to lower the tax impact as much as possible on my life savings. Then go to the retirementkey.com, click on the contact us tab at the top of that page, and we can put together that same tax mapping report and analysis for you as well.
We also have links posted in the show notes, so you can just click there if that's more convenient, or again, visit us anytime at theretirementkey.com.